So hello everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the Dead Money Media's NFL Contest show. Well, we had another successful week. Week 4 ended up putting up a 4-1 record, just missing out on that perfect record and the Dead Money Media Contest parlay. Again, 2 weeks in a row, it was the San Francisco 49ers spoiling what could have been a perfect 5-0 record and ruining the Dead Money Media parlay. At least with this last week, it was the final leg of the parlay that ended up missing. So I hope some of you out there, if you were live for that 5th leg of the parlay, I hope you hedged your bet a little bit and made some money off of that parlay. Didn't walk away empty-handed. But it's week 5. Sports books took a little bit of a loss last week, and now it shows in some of the lines they've put out. I mean, they've got some of these favorites at well over a touchdown. So they're making you have to decide if you think these teams are going to have separation in week 5 and if they're going to be able to put up enough points to cover some of these large spreads. A little bit of a warning this week with my picks. I'm going more with a contest strategy, and I'm looking for games that should be unpopular with the most of the people in the contest, as well as unpopular sides in the contest. And I'm hoping to find lightning in a bottle in week 5 and maybe get myself that 5-0, but also try to catch up to some of these leaders that are sitting at the top of the contest right now. This is also the start of the second quarter, so that means we're starting all over at 0-0 as far as the second quarter prizes is concerned. So starting off with a 5-0 a week would certainly be a great way to begin the second quarter. Well, I've gone through the list of games they got for week 5. I've picked out my 5 games that I like. So let's get into it and see which 5 games I like for week 5 of the NFL season. So for the first game that I like, we're going to be taking a trip across the pond. It's the Green Bay Packers -8 taking on the New York Giants. I just think the Green Bay Packers are a much better team here, and laying the -8, I know it's a big number. It's a number not a lot of people are going to want to bet. And after they saw the game last week where Green Bay needed overtime just to beat the New England Patriots with their 3rd-string quarterback, a lot of people are going to be thinking that this Green Bay offense isn't really all that great. But from what I've seen, the wide receivers are finally starting to play well. The running backs are outstanding. The offensive line is finally healthy. And the defense, they've played well. They've given up a lot of yards on the ground, but you know, some of these teams that they've played, that's all they've had to lean on was their running game. And, you know, as far as the passing game is concerned, they didn't give up much yards in that department. And the team that they're going up against, the New York Giants, although they've been very successful running the ball, their offense is just too reliant on Barkley and Daniel Jones scrambling around and making plays on 3rd down with his legs. And Daniel Jones is coming into this game with a high ankle sprain, and if Tyrod Taylor was available, I don't think Daniel Jones would be playing in this game, and he still may not play in this game. This could all be a lot of smoke and mirrors by the Giants coaching staff trying not to give anything away till they absolutely have to. But if it ends up being Davis Webb, whatever, their 3rd-string quarterback, I just don't know where the points are going to come from. I don't think they're going to be able to score very many points with Daniel Jones at quarterback. If you put Webb in there, I really think they're going to be in trouble. They've got a bunch of missing wide receivers on offense. Their offensive line's banged up. I mean, this is just a really bad spot for the New York Giants. And we've seen they move the ball, they get down near the 20-yard line, and then their offense just completely falls apart, and they can't do anything in the red zone. So I don't expect them to be able to score too many points. And as far as with the Green Bay Packers, Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator for the Giants, isn't going to be able to do the things he's done the last couple of weeks with these 1st- and 2nd-year quarterbacks that they've faced. His blitz-happy defense will get shredded by Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback that just kills teams when they try to blitz them because he can read the defense pre-snap, he knows where he's going with the ball, and he can put the ball right where his wide receivers are expecting it. So I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game by the Green Bay Packers, and I think they'll stretch out the lead. At -8, obviously the back door is always open, but I just don't have any faith in the New York Giants offense. So for my first pick, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers -8. So the second game that I like is the Miami Dolphins -3.5 going up to New Jersey to take on the New York Jets. We saw the Miami Dolphins lost their starting quarterback Tua in that Thursday night game, but they've got Teddy Bridgewater, who I'm in love with. This guy's made me so much money over his career that anytime he's playing, I'm betting on Teddy. And the fact that he's got two dynamic wide receivers to throw the ball to, a running game that's starting to find itself, and a defense that's getting after the quarterback, I just don't think this New York Jets team has much of a chance. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to keep up with Miami, even if they're at home. But if you watched that game last week against the Steelers, the Jets were really anemic on offense until the last 8 minutes of the game. And that was only because the Pittsburgh Steelers were dealing with a bunch of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And we saw that come to fruition when the New York Jets were able to score 14 points and ended up winning that game. Now they're getting a lot of credit because Zach Wilson had one good game, but he's still banged up. He's got his knee that he just came back from, plus his ankle's banged up, so I don't know how mobile he's going to be. And I think that the Miami Dolphins are just going to blitz him to death. They're going to cause turnovers, and it's going to give the Miami Dolphins offense short fields and able to allow Teddy Bridgewater and this offense to put touchdowns on the board. Once you do that, you put the game in Zach Wilson's hands, and I just don't think he's capable of getting enough points to beat this Miami Dolphins team. The defense for the Dolphins, their front seven's okay, but their secondary, even though, Sauce Gardner, he's played well, but they're still just not ready for the caliber of wide receivers they're going to be facing with this Miami Dolphins team. The line's 3.5 in the contest. It's actually gone down to 3 at the Circa, but I got it at -3.5, and I'm confident that they're going to be able to score enough points to cover that spread. So for my second pick, give me the Miami Dolphins -3.5. So the third game that I like is the New Orleans Saints -5.5 at home taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks had an incredibly offensive outburst against a very bad Detroit Lions defense last week, and they needed every point of it because they only ended up winning by 3 points after scoring 48 points in that game. But I think that's a one-off. We saw them get shut out against San Francisco. They only scored 17 points against Denver, and that was in the first half. And even against a mediocre Atlanta Falcons defense, they could only muster, I think, 23 points and ended up losing at home to the Atlanta Falcons. Now they're going up against the New Orleans Saints defense that is the real deal. And if not for maybe some turnovers and a couple of questionable calls in that game last week against the Vikings, could have got the W in London. Now they're coming home. They're angry. They're getting Alvin Kamara back on offense. It looks like Andy Dalton's going to be playing quarterback, which I actually think is an upgrade from Jameis Winston because Winston's just way too reckless with the ball. Olave's coming into his own. Jarvis Landry should be playing. Troutman, their tight end, is playing. Taysom Hill's been coming in and mixing it up in like a wildcat that throws the defenses off. The only player on offense for the New Orleans Saints that looks like he might not be playing is Michael Thomas, but he's missed so much time that they're almost used to it. I think Callaway will be just fine as their number 3 receiver, so I think the Saints will be just fine. And the Seahawks defense, they got shredded by Jared Goff and TJ Hawkinson. Like, those two together basically scored all the points for the Detroit Lions in that game. It's like, how can you not cover them? They were missing their number 1 running back and their top 2 wide receivers, and they still got destroyed by Jared Goff and that Detroit Lions offense. And I just don't think they're going to be able to match point for point with this New Orleans team because this defense is really getting after it. They're playing well. I mean, they played against a really good Vikings team, played against Tampa Bay and held them down for most of the game. They've been pretty unlucky with turnovers and penalties in these last couple of games. I think that'll straighten itself out. The fact that they're at home, Geno Smith's got to play in that loud dome. You know the crowd's going to be motivated for this game, so they're going to be into it. And I just think it's going to be enough to help push this team over the edge. And with it being -5.5, this is not going to be a popular game in the contest to begin with. And if it is, everybody's going to be picking the Seahawks after what they saw last week. And that's part of the reason why I'm going with this game, because I'm going contrarian and I'm trying to find spots where I'll be on the minority side. And if I can get this win, it'll definitely put me in a much better position going into the second week of the second quarter and overall in the contest in general. So, I mean, I do believe in the Saints. 5.5 is kind of it's not really a key number. It's in like no man's land, which is basically telling you that the sports books don't really know which way to go because there's so many variables in this game. But I just believe in the Saints defense. I believe in their offense. The fact that they're getting Kamara back. I think last time they played against the Seahawks last year, he had like a combined 180 yards from scrimmage. So I expect to see big things from him, big things from this offense, and I think the Saints defense is going to come out and they're going to shut down this Seattle offense that looked so good last week that I, again, think that was just a one-off. If you remember correctly, they got shut out by a good defense, the San Francisco 49ers. So for my third pick, give me the New Orleans Saints minus 5.5. So the fourth game that I like is the Buffalo Bills minus 4.5 at home taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looks like Kenny Pickett for the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be getting his first start in the NFL, and it couldn't come against a worse opponent. He's going to be playing against arguably the best defense in the NFL in their stadium in Buffalo, where that crowd is going to be so loud. This ain't like some of these other teams. These fans do not sell their tickets. They're going to the games. They're supporting their team. And I just think this is a bad spot for Kenny Pickett. Their offense has been terrible. The offensive line hasn't been good. Their wide receivers haven't really played up to what they were preseason. The running game struggled. And you're going to have to rely on Kenny Pickett to score touchdowns because field goals ain't doing it. This Buffalo team is one of the highest scoring offenses in the league, and I expect them to put up a lot of points in this game. And that's going to actually play right into the Buffalo Bills defense, because once you turn this into a passing game and you have to get Kenny Pickett back there, that secondary for Buffalo is just licking their chops waiting for interceptions, and guys like Von Miller are just teeing off and going after the quarterback trying to strip the ball, and I expect to see a couple turnovers in this game. I actually think this is going to be somewhere around 35-17, so I know laying minus 14 is a huge number. I think I had almost the same exact situation last year. I think it was 16.5, and they ended up covering the spread in that game. So I'm going back to the well. I know that laying 14.5 in any contest or any football game is never a popular side, so that's another component that I'm planning on, that even if people are picking this game, they're going to be taking the points with Pittsburgh. They're not going to be laying 14 points with Buffalo. And I'm looking, again, to try to catch lightning in a bottle, get one of those very unpopular teams, and hopefully come out on the right side of this and move myself up while a lot of other people in the contest take a loss. If I can do that in this week and really come out ahead after this week, I'll be in prime position going into week 6. So as much as I believe in Buffalo, and I know laying 14 points is a big number, this has as much to do with this being an unpopular contest pick as anything else. So just be a little bit careful. I know laying 14 points, if you're betting this game, can be a little scary, but I'm confident. And again, if Buffalo... if I believe they're going to win the game, I got to think they're going to cover the spread. And again, I just don't see where Pittsburgh's going to score. I know a lot of people are putting a lot of hype on Kenny Pickett, but again, he's going up against one of the best defenses in the league, so at home. So good luck. And once Buffalo starts scoring touchdowns, you're going to have to score touchdowns. Field goals aren't going to cut it, and I just don't think they'll be able to match them touchdown for touchdown. So for my fourth pick, give me the Buffalo Bills minus 14. So the last game that I like is the Cincinnati Bengals plus 3.5 heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. This is a divisional matchup. These two teams know each other well. And the fact that it's 3.5 points, I really like that Cincinnati's getting the hook, because I think they've got an opportunity to win this game outright. The Cincinnati Bengals played on Thursday, so they've had extra time to rest and extra time to prepare for this game, while the Baltimore Ravens suffered that tough loss against the Buffalo Bills in that sloppy game where they were leading for most of that game and ended up losing it in the very end. But I just think the Baltimore Ravens offense is relying too much on Lamar Jackson, and their defense, specifically the secondary, has just looked really, really vulnerable to good passing teams. And we know the Cincinnati Bengals, they've got two top-notch wide receivers in Chase and Higgins. Tyler Boyd is certainly a quality number 2. Hurst at tight end is really starting to blossom with this offense. And I just think that even though the running game for the Bengals hasn't been that great, as long as the offensive line can keep Joe Burrow upright, the Bengals have every opportunity to win this game. Baltimore, they're missing Rashad Bateman. They had to go out and sign Andy Isabella, who was cut by the Bengals because they're so thin at wide receiver. And they're just overly dependent on Lamar, and Lamar throwing to Mark Andrews. And defenses are able to defend that if they have the players on defense to match up against them, and I think the Bengals do. We saw them play pretty well against a very good Miami Dolphins offense, particularly with their 2 speedster wide receivers. And even though the Dolphins lost 2 in that game, again, Teddy Bridgewater is a quality backup quarterback, and he came in there and he's, the Bengals, they played well. I mean, they had to get an interception at the end of the game to stop a potential game-tying drive, but they made the plays when they needed to make them. And I believe they'll be able to make the plays in this game, particularly if they can keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket and not let him scramble around and use his legs to gain first downs and potentially score touchdowns. So as long as they can keep this game close into the fourth quarter, they certainly have an opportunity to win it with their wide receivers. And I just like their chances here. With it being a division matchup, again, I think the plus 3.5, getting that hook, even if Baltimore does end up winning this game, I don't think it'll be by more than a field goal. So I'm willing to take the points with the Bengals and, even count on them just covering the spread, even if they don't win the game. So I really like their chances to win here, but giving me 3.5, I'm taking it. So for my 5th and final pick, give me the Cincinnati Bengals plus 3.5. So those are my 5 picks for Week 5 of the NFL season. Now again, just to be clear, a couple of these picks, even though I believe in them and I'll be betting them personally, some of these plays are for strategic purposes as far as playing the contrarian side and what I think will be unpopular picks in the contest this week. So tread lightly if you're betting these games this week, because although I am confident in these games, I'm also kind of taking a long shot here at some of these picks in the opportunity, again, like I said before, to try to catch lightning in the bottle. But now it's the Week 5 NFL Contest Show Parlay. Again, most of the time when I pick a team that's plus points, I'll just go with the money line because I think they're going to win. But this week I'm going to take the points with the Bengals, not be too greedy. It worked out last week. I'm going to do it again this week because I do think this game could go either way, but I only see it as a 3-point game, and in that Bengals game we're getting 3.5. So for the Week 5 NFL Contest Show Parlay, the first pick is the Green Bay Packers -8. The Miami Dolphins -3.5, the New Orleans Saints -5.5, the Buffalo Bills -14, and the Cincinnati Bengals plus 3.5. You put all 5 of those into a parlay, and the payout should be somewhere in the neighborhood of plus 2,200. So again, not a bad one. And if you had last week's parlay and you didn't get burned by the Minnesota Vikings only covering by 3, then you had an opportunity to hedge that bet. And I hope if you did, take some of that money and maybe sprinkle it on this week's parlay. But again, don't go too crazy because some of these games are long shots, and the back door is always open when you're laying a lot of points the way I am this week. So those are my 5 picks. I hope everybody has a great week. Hope everybody makes a lot of money, and thanks for watching.